welcome you to yet another episode of Mani Ki Baat, Suneet Ke Saath. I am Mani, she is my wife Suneet, and we have today the most distinguished guest we have ever had, a former commerce minister, a former finance minister, and a former home minister. I have placed this in this order because today we are going to discuss commerce. Were we discussing inland security or finance, then I would have changed the order. But he has been one of certainly our most distinguished Minister of State for Commerce. This is Mr. Chidambaram, who has represented Tamil Nadu in Parliament for the best part of the last 50 years. I've read an utterly brilliant, even less than 1,000 words by you in the Indian Express on Sunday. And you made the point, which I am intrigued by, and I'm sure my viewers would need to understand it better, that this is not a deal. It's not even an agreement. It is a joint statement which perhaps could constitute the framework of a deal, but the nature of the deal depends upon the fine print. And nobody knows what the fine print will be, and nobody knows whether Mr. Trump will change his mind tomorrow. So, before I come to that point, Suneet has a comment to make.
So, how is it reciprocal? That's what it's supposed to be.
It's not reciprocal. I have given examples of paragraphs verbatim quoting of the joint statement and the accompanying statement issued by President Trump, which shows it's not reciprocal. It's more or less a unilateral decision by the United States, well, actually Mr. Trump. And he seems to have made some adjustments, but it is a take it or leave it statement. And India, in the current economic situation, perhaps Mr. Modi thought that he had no choice but to get a deal.
If by accident you had been today's commerce minister, would you have accepted such an agreement?
Certainly not. But I must concede that the circumstances in which the Indian economy is placed and the circumstances in which the world economy is placed, India is not an equal dealer with Mr. Trump.
So I think we should understand that we can have perhaps a moral claim as an asset, but the hard reality is that in political terms, in economic terms, and in military terms, we are infinitely inferior to the Americans. But we were even more inferior when Jawaharlal Nehru was the Prime Minister and he produced a policy of non-alignment.
That's true, but Mr. Trump got his way with Europe, with Japan, with Korea in trade deals because he has weaponized the tariff. This is exactly opposite of a WTO. The World Trade Organization was founded on the agreement, the GATT agreement, based on rule-based world trading arrangement, rule-based world commerce. He has completely upended it. He says, I will do trade on my terms and I will weaponize the tariff. I mean, all this is completely illegal according to the WTO agreement. How can you impose 25% and 50% tariff on countries? But since he has the economic power, he's wielding that economic power, and he did it in Korea, Japan and Europe, and he has done it with a great degree of vengeance against India.
It's strange, isn't it? They kept hugging each other, and I could see Mr. Trump wincing, but it was played up that India was the first southern country, global southern country, to be invited to the White House on the 13th of February. And then we did Operation Sindoor, and ever since then, our relationship with the White House has been going down, while the relationship of Pakistan with the White House has been going up.
But then I must compliment the government for not flattering Mr. Trump as Pakistan does. For example, Whatever the truth, he did not acknowledge that the 4-day war was stopped on Mr. Trump's intervention. He did not propose him for the Nobel Prize. That's why I advisedly use the words. He's wreaked vengeance through this deal.
Can we get back to the deal, sir? You had said that what has been agreed so far is a joint statement,
Yes.
that there is no deal and that there is no agreement. I think our viewers would need to be enlightened, in simple language about what that
See,
means.
there are 4 parts to this, what is available in the public domain. One is the joint statement. It was released by the White House and it was more or less simultaneously released by the Commerce Minister. The second is based on Mr. Trump's statement of the same day. Most people have not read that statement. They read only the joint statement. He has issued an executive order of 6th of February. The third is the joint statement and the executive order refer to various orders that he had passed earlier in 25 and 26. We don't know the text of that order. It obliquely refers to, in fact, it sometimes directly refers to, subject to the orders, read with the orders. So there are 3 or 4 orders, and we don't have any information about those orders. And the fourth is the section under which investigation is taking place. He refers to that, but I have found out that the investigation is taking place into the pharmaceuticals export of India. Therefore, there are 4 parts to the statement. The investigation is half known. The orders are maybe known to the Commerce Ministry, but the public don't know. The executive order is so complex that you can't understand the executive order and the effect of the executive order unless you have these accompanying documents. The joint statement is the least informative.
Is it necessary to be so secretive? And secondly, we are supposed to, according to the deal, import 500 billion US dollars worth of goods. So apart from the military hardware, etc., will this also mean that we get for 100 rupees Revlon lipstick? I mean, what are we going to import for 500 million dollars?
I have mentioned that.
Billion, not million.
Mr. Ajay Srivastava, an acknowledged trade expert, has written a column or article in the Times of India where he says America has few goods that it can produce competitively which India needs. They have services is a different matter. We are talking about goods. We are not talking about services. Services, we export services, they export services. That's a different ball game. We are talking about goods. What does America have which we can't get at a more competitive price from Europe or Japan or Korea?
Or make ourselves.
Or make ourselves. There's nothing. Practically nothing. They have military aircraft, military equipment. They have oil, and that heavy oil is not suitable for Indian refineries. Reliance has come out with a statement, somebody else has come out with a statement that that oil is not good for our refinery. Our refinery is meant mainly for Russian oil and Middle Eastern oil. So what do we do with that military equipment? I mean, we have now got a large number of Rafales from France, and for about 10, 14 billion or so. We are talking about 500 billion. Even if we get 1,000 aircraft, what do we do with that 1,000 aircraft? I mean, how does it help the Indian economy because it's not produced here? How does it help the Indian common man because he's not going to fly in that Rafale? You can only blow it up in a war. I mean, I agree, we should have a strong defense capability. But why do we buy $500 billion worth of practically unusable military aircraft and oil which can't be refined in our refineries?
You see, the biggest problem, sir, as a former petroleum minister, is that the heaviest oil that we've ever used is Venezuelan.
Yes.
And it's only been used in one refinery, the Ambani refinery in Jamnagar. All, as you said, all our others are based on Arabian light crude, which is more or less matched by east of Urals production by Russia. That's a very recent development. What shale oil does is to be extremely heavy and extremely sour. So as you quite rightly said, there is very little scope for us to, there's plenty of scope for us to please Mr. Trump, but there's very little use we can make even of oil, let alone the military aircraft.
And a thought occurs to me, why should Reliance seek a US license to import Venezuelan oil? I mean, that is something which I read last week. I'm not able to fit it into that. If Venezuela is a sovereign country and we have used Venezuelan oil in one refinery, and let's assume to please Trump, we import some quantity of Venezuelan oil which can't be used in any other refinery. Why do we get a US license for that? I don't know. It's all mystery.
Because Trump has become the president of
And
Venezuela.
I said so. He's the dealer of the cards.
Yes.
He can deal any card, he can withdraw any card. He has amended his executive order of 6 February twice already. There's no guarantee that he won't amend it again.
That's right. And on reciprocity, which Suneet brought up, can you give us instances of the lack of reciprocity, even in the joint statement?
See, the first thing is that some items of the US will come into India at zero tariff.
Zero tariff.
Zero tariff. All items India exports to the US, assuming this framework agreement is concluded,
Implemented.
will remain at 18%. Pre-April 2, 2025, we enjoyed an MFN tariff of 3%. Now, whether the 3% will be added to the 18%, there's a little dispute. Ajay Srivastava thinks that 3% will be added to the 18%, be that as it may. Take 18%. There's no reciprocity at all if no goods of India will go at 0%. 0% and 18% is obviously non-reciprocal. The second one is non-tariff barriers. Most people don't understand non-tariff barriers. Like tariff is a barrier, non-tariff items can also be barriers. Non-tariff barriers, the agreement says that India will address long-standing non-tariff barriers on US medical devices and US food and agricultural products. So at least two are mentioned, medical devices and US food and agricultural products. There are non-tariff barriers, I'm not denying that. We will address that. But then the US has non-tariff barriers also. So seafood, for example, is subject to severe non-tariff barriers. Pharmaceutical is subject to severe non-tariff barriers. You will have to get it certified in the US lab. Therefore, there is not even a mention that the US will address the non-tariff barriers which Indian exports face in the US. The third is, they have listed a large number of items: US energy products, aircraft parts, precious metals, technology products, and coking coal, which India will intend to buy for $500 billion. And then graphic processing units and other goods used in data centers also we will buy. I've examined this paragraph closely. There's not a single product mentioned in this paragraph which India exports to the US. Apart from the commitment of 500 billion US dollars, for which there is no corresponding commitment or reciprocal commitment. This paragraph, you read it again and again. There's not a single product which India exports to the US. I mean, do we export energy products, military aircraft, precious metals, technology products, coking coal, graphic processing units. They are all American products. Therefore, there are a whole number of unreciprocal promises. Mr. Trump has extracted 3 promises from India. One is we will stop directly or indirectly importing Russian oil. Second is it will purchase United States energy products, which means can only be oil. The third is India's framework agreement with the United States to expand defense cooperation with sensitivity to their security concerns. So, how this will pan out, I don't know. But there are 3 promises which Trump has virtually extracted from India. Where is the promise that we have extracted from the US? I mean, it doesn't refer to.
And there's so much talk about how Indian farmers are going to be affected by the trade deal. So, what would you say on that issue?
See, I'm not familiar with agricultural economics and
Can I
agricultural
add
products.
a point here, sir?
Yes.
Ashok Gulati,
Yes.
who is an agroeconomist, has written an article today that most of the agricultural products which the United States intends to export to India are those that are not produced in India. Is that true?
Well, that's not true. See, we are, for example, Mr. Randeep Surjewala gave the numbers yesterday in a press conference. I don't recall the numbers exactly. We produce large quantities of soybean. The central India is a big producer of soybean, but we are importing soybean oil. We produce a large amount of corn, what we call maize. We have agreed to import corn. So it's not as though we are not a large producer. We are a producer of large amount of cotton. Now, our cotton, 50% of our cotton was exported to Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh has agreed to import American cotton in turn for their cotton textiles going into America at 0%. Therefore, unless you examine each item and what America produces and exports and what India produces on our exportable surplus, I mean, you can't come to a conclusion, but it's not correct to say, Mr. Gulati, I have great respect for him, it's not correct to say that America will export agricultural products which India does not produce. That's a wrong statement. As far as I know, we produce soybean oil, soybean, and we produce cotton, we produce corn.
There's a curious item mentioned, which is red jowar. Now,
Yes.
jowar is an Indian word.
They
what
call
does
it red
mean?
sorghum.
I see.
Red sorghum. I mentioned it in my article. We are importing red sorghum, but I don't know the numbers of how much jowar we produce. I think we produce a large amount of jowar. Today, the government, today's papers, government says, or some spokesman has said, that whatever agricultural products we import under the framework deal will be subject to quotas. Now, what that does it mean? It's all verbiage. It means that up to a certain quantity, they will come at 0% or very low tariff. Beyond the quantity, beyond the level of quantity, we will impose tariffs. But then the first few years will start from zero, not at the high level. And if it takes to exhaust the quota, quota is an annual quota. Every year we import up to the quota. Let's assume the quota is X million tons. That X million tons at 0% or low tariff will wipe out the farmers. Why does he have to wait until we reach X to be competitive? I mean,
So we've got another
Yeah.
10 minutes. I want to ask you 2 questions.
yes,
According to my brother, who is probably India's second most renowned economic columnist after you, he said,
he's a better economist column I disagree with him, but he's certainly
Well, he was on our
worth reading.
program the other day, and he said that trade in goods is irrelevant because it is whatever is going to happen in services that will determine the nature
Correct.
of the relationship between India and America.
Correct. But trade in services is relevant to 70%. Trade in goods is relevant to 70% of India's population.
That's right.
Trade in services is relevant to all those few thousand people who have gathered in Bharat Mandap. I mean, I'm not underestimating that. Trade in services is very relevant for India in the present and in future. But 70% of India's population is dependent upon goods and trade in goods.
Can you, I think what you mean is that 70% either deals with agriculture or marine products. It also deals with leather. It deals with precious gems and jewels.
Textiles.
It deals with textiles.
Pharmaceuticals.
Yes. Pharmaceuticals. So this range of goods is going to affect the most important engine of inclusive
Yes.
growth, which is the MSMEs.
See, these are where the farmers are. Textiles and leather are qualified, trained workers, but low level of training. It's not requires the IT or artificial intelligence training. They are common people from common families who get a job for 15,000, 20,000. We are not talking about 1 lakh salary. This is where the MSMEs are. Therefore, these affect their daily lives. And these products, these products export has given us a trade surplus of $45 billion a year. That goes to meet the current account deficit. But if this $45 billion is wiped out, it could be wiped out. It is wiped out, how do you manage the current account deficit? I mean, there are serious questions. I'm working on that, a column. What happens to our current account deficit? What happens to our trade deficit, or we have net trade deficit? Where do we make up this trade surplus to meet, for example, with the US, we have got a trade surplus of $45 billion. With China, we have a trade deficit of $112 billion. This 45 meets partially the 112. But if this 45 is wiped out, where do you get the money to buy the Chinese goods? There are serious implications for this. See, Trump has made it clear that he wants to punish countries which have accumulated a trade surplus. He wants balanced trade. Balanced trade is a utopia. Every country can't have balanced trade with every other country. There will be trade deficits, there will be trade surpluses. But our trade surpluses with America is critical because we have a trade deficit elsewhere, and that will be wiped out.
Okay. So it seems as if disaster is facing us. The only hope is to get Sri Chidambaram again as the Commerce Minister.
Very unlikely.
But that is unlikely to happen in the near future. So all we can rely on is for Modi ji to make yet another trip to the White House and hug Mr. Trump even more closely and nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, and not ask to meet Nicolas Maduro, who has been kidnapped from Caracas and is lodged in a New York jail. Have you any concluding remarks to make, sir?
I won't comment on all those statements. I'll only say that Mr. Piyush Goyal said in 3 or 4 days we will have a framework finalized. 6th February is the joint statement and President's executive order. Today we are in the 17th of February. 11 days are gone. And I read in the morning's papers that a team is going to the United States today to conclude the framework agreement. If the framework agreement is concluded, I'll expect it. It should be made public, and all the details, all the annexures, all the appendices, all the cross references must be made public. I mean, as a lawyer, I can only look at a petition with all the annexures, all the appendices, all the cross references. If you give me the petition, what can you do? What can the judge do? So everything on paper must be made explicit and made public so that we can sit down and examine it.
Suneet, in your opening remarks, you referred to Revlon lipstick.
Yeah, no hope for
would
that, I think.
May I please ask you to give your final remarks before we close the program? Shri Chidambaram has to go.
So, what happens about the consumer goods in the market are already
No, they are coming at high tariff.
Yeah.
I don't think this framework agreement refers to consumer goods. And that consumer goods will come at high tariff, and less than 1% of the people buy it. No?
Yes.
1% of India is about 1.4 crore.
So that's neither here nor there.
That's neither here nor there. The wealthy will splurge.
Right.
Suneet finds that in the INA market, all the vegetable vendors speak Korean.
And Japanese, and it's full of imported goods from Thailand and Cambodia and so on. But not so much the
No,
American goods.
those goods are cheaper and in sometimes of equal quality to the West.
Absolutely.
Refrigerators, air conditioners,
Yes, all those.
all that is as good and from Japan and Korea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are really honored to have had Tariffs Chidambaram Avarhal on our program. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you.